Last night, the Ohio State Buckeyes, lost in the college football playoff to Miami, who was clearly the better team last night, and it showed. Defensively, offensively even, it looked like Ohio State was ill-prepared, slow, sluggish. And in this video, I want to discuss a problem that extends beyond Ohio State. And I don't think it explains their loss last night because there are certainly other factors that go into Ohio State coming up short. Also, I've got my colors appropriate for Miami. I mean, I'm not an Ohio State fan. I'm giving the flowers right here. The U colors are displayed in full force. And I'm not going to say this is like prescriptive advice to college football teams across the country. I'm not going to say that this is the number one reason that they lost, although I may title it that way so that people will click on the video. Isn't that how the internet works? But I want to talk about a concept that I think is overlooked. I believe that there are arguments to be made that Miami was just the better team. I believe there are arguments to be made that matchup-wise, Ohio State's offensive line was ill-equipped to handle Miami's pass rush. I will acknowledge that if you look at Ohio State's schedule, it was not very difficult. Outside of their game against Texas week 1, they didn't play much of anyone until IU for the Big Ten Championship, which they lost, and then last night against Miami, which they lost. And the issue is, and where the lines get blurred, is the point I'm trying to prove is a variable that overlaps some of these other variables because it deals specifically with these losses. And so it's hard to extract the variable that I'm going to tell you and say this is the reason. But I believe the point still matters. I believe it is still a point that I wish would get addressed and fixed in college football. So understand that I'm coming into this realizing this is a little bit of a, sounds biased, but I'm not as, if I zoom out, I'm not as biased as this sounds. I think the issue last night, or one of the issues, was Brian Hartline. Brian Hartline was the offensive coordinator all year for this team. And Brian Hartline accepted a job at USF, head coaching job at USF for next season on December 3rd. Now, why? Why? I don't have the answer to that, but I have what I believe to be a solution. How about, as a entity, college football entity, we say no business gets done until the offseason? What if, and I realize USF is in their offseason. USF is not in the college football playoff, so they are in their offseason, and if they are needing a new coach, they need to act fast. And if that is reaching out to teams who are still in the college football playoff, like Ohio State, and going after an offensive coordinator who has proven that he can develop wide receivers and be a mastermind, if we're gonna be ultra glazing, we'll call him a mastermind. Like, they got to act fast. I get it, but the college football season doesn't start until August. And I get there's off season. I get there's training. I understand all that. But what if we said, hey, until the second week, third week of January, we don't get deals done? What if we have, what if we go extreme? I mean, what if we say not until February 1st can teams start wheeling and dealing? And there's punishments if they do. That gives teams all of February, all of March, all of April. And I get that teams practice and play and plan in those eras. But what if we say, you know what? Everybody's going to get the same playing field. If a head coach cannot come in February 1st and get a college football team ready for a season that starts in August, there's a bigger problem. So Brian Hartline accepts the job December 3rd. December 6th, they play IU. Ohio State plays IU in the Big Ten Championship. A game that doesn't matter in terms of like the college football playoff. I'm sure seeding, I don't know for sure, but I'm sure seeding was important in that one. But both of those teams were going to be in the college football playoff. So it didn't really matter. Ryan Day takes over the play calling in that game. Why? I truly don't know. They said it was to give less work to Brian Hartline as he prepares for his head coaching job at USF next year, which I think is so ridiculous. Brian Hartline has potentially, 3-4 games left if they win the college football playoff? You're telling me that Brian Hartline is incapable of doing his job at Ohio State because he's accepted a future job at USF? And I'm not saying all teams do that, but I think it's quite bizarre for Ryan Day and the organization of Ohio State to make this call that says, hey, because you're starting a new job later, we're going to cut short your job here. You're still going to be on our staff, but I'm going to take away these duties from you, duties that you're comfortable with, clearly. You put up 30 and 40 points in almost every game you played. I'm going to start calling the plays. It feels... I don't know what it feels like. You could call it generous from Ryan Day, like, oh, what a good guy. He's helping out a buddy who served his team well. He's saying, you know what, I got you, Brian. I am going to take this off your plate, and I'm going to facilitate an easier transition for you. Or you could call it arrogance. Ryan Day is saying, you know what, I'll call the plays. You're going to leave us, I'm going to call the play. I don't know what happened, but I find it bizarre. Ohio State loses that game. They were facing one of the better defenses they'd faced all year. That is a piece of this puzzle, but Brian Hartline was not calling the plays, and their offense looked off. They get a bye. They get 2, 3, 4 weeks off until last night when they played. I mean, that's almost a month. They played the 6th, and then they played the 30th. That's three-ish weeks. And they came out as flat as I've ever seen this team. Ohio State looked poor, and I was doing a puzzle while it was on. My back was actually to the TV, but I could tell they looked poor, metaphorically. They had no spark. They ran the ball okay, but they gave up on the run, it felt like, too often, too early. Carnell Tate looked slow. Jeremiah Smith did his thing. Julian Sand was under constant pressure. There was no flair. There was no creativity. There was no, hey, we are mismatch on the offensive line. How can we slow that down? Well, we run the ball more. We do some screens. We take our shots when we need to. We set up the long passes with the play action because we've slowed down the pass rush. It didn't feel like there was any of that. And part of me thinks that, yeah, Brian Hartline is probably in meetings, probably in discussions, and so he should have been there, but he wasn't calling the plays. And as soon as you, as an organization, as Ohio State, you say, hey, we're going to take these duties from you, you're basically giving Brian Hartline a green light to check out, I think. And who am I to say? I'm nobody. But I think you're giving Brian Hartline a free pass to say, yeah, okay, you're taking off my play calling duties. You're acknowledging I'm getting a new job. All right. I'm going to kind of match that energy. I don't know if that's the case, but I feel like that's the case. And they lost last night. And so the bigger picture here for me is you can make the argument about strength of schedule. You can say, you know what, maybe Ohio State really wasn't that good this year. You can say that Miami was just a better team. You can say that the bye week is a curse for the college football. You could say all kinds of things. And you can say that maybe it was the fact that Brian Hartline accepted a job at another team during the most important part of the season for Ohio State. And it's all about money. It's all about competitiveness. It's all about being the best. It's all about acting fat. It's all of the things that make college football lose a little bit of their spark for me. And I think if we were able to say, let's put some parameters up, and of course there would still be wheeling and dealing. There would still be people going behind these rules and orchestrating things. Brian Hartline, I'm sure if you said you can't make deals until February 1st, USF probably would have reached out to him still. He may have accepted the job behind the scenes. It wouldn't be announced until February. I get that. There's always teams and people who are going to skirt the rules and try to gain an advantage. But I think we would be better off and teams would be better off if we said, hey, there is a definite offseason for every team. This is the day that all college football Division I can act. And maybe Ohio State wins last night, if that's the case. Probably not.